You mentioned having a good opinion of the servants of God. A beautiful opinion. Is that the phrase? A beautiful opinion. Does that include one's own self? Because we tend to talk about having good opinion of other people, and I know this is probably not what it is, but one often gets the impression that you're supposed to hold yourself to account, and therefore that can actually result in you beating yourself up. Oh, I did this, and how am I ever going to get over it? And related to that, how do you deal with regret as a human being?
Great question. The short answer is the only person which you don't have husn al-dhan of is your own self. Sounds a bit daunting. So to unpack that further, what that doesn't mean is you wallow in your own misery, that you're constantly blinded by your own failure and shortcomings, which we're all partial to from time to time. What it really means is you sober up. You're aware of that there's something here there that I need to work on. That's what it means. A good opinion of someone else, even if they're doing something which is clearly wrong, it's not our duty to go and judge. It's our duty to go and help and assist if we're able to, without prying, without we're doing things in a sensible, in a wise way, which is conducive to transformation, to that person's change. If we're just going to exacerbate the problem, it's actually haram to intervene. And this is part of the fiqh of amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, principle within our tradition. Now, within oneself, we're only ever going to be refined if we're aware of those discrepancies within our souls. And this is why, related back to Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, he would say that, may Allah have mercy, rahim Allah, amra'an ahda ilayya uyubi. May Allah have compassion upon whom? Person that showed me kindness, person that helped me, person that was gentle with me, person that served me, person that supported me. No, the one that gifted me my faults. That's the ahda, like literally he gave me as a gift my faults. That's an amazing, so eloquent. Because how can that be a gift? The scholars say that one of the greatest gifts that you can be given is awareness of certain characteristic traits which are, because the nafs al-amara, which is that relentless nafs that has no criterion for good or bad, it doesn't have that cognitive reasoning to differentiate. It's just like, well, I'm just going to act. I don't care how people perceive me. That's the way it is. You see this, I don't care, it's my life. Cool, but it doesn't mean, once again, there aren't consequences. I appreciate that. Live the way you want, but there are going to be consequences. Nobody would deny that. It's fairly rational. And the idea of it not being a kind of woe is me type thing, to wallow in your own misery, because that's also quite nihilistic as well. Oh, I'm nothing. Here's the thing: it's got nothing to do with you. It's got everything to do with Allah. And Allah doesn't forgive you in accordance to where you're at. He forgives you in accordance to whom He is and was and always will be and never changes. So because He's called it Himself Al-Ghafur, the one that's constantly forgiving, constantly relenting back to His At-Ta'ib, the one that, because you can only turn back to Allah, you can only have an authentic tawbah if in reality Allah has turned to you. Because you're pulled upwards, if you like, to use the term figuratively. But how do we do this? What we don't also do is say, well, Allah's merciful, so I'll just carry on doing the same thing. The analogy is if God forbid, but if somebody has some kind of cancer in their hand or a particular limb, you're not going to go, well, it's there, but at the end of the day, whatever. No, you're going to address it. You're going to work on it before it spreads. Because if you have these discrepancies in your soul, you want to get rid of them whilst you're still able to see them. Because the Prophet ﷺ described these discrepancies as black spots in the heart, and there can come a stage where if a person does not take care of them, the entire heart becomes encrusted by this blackness, which you're unable to recognize truth any longer. So the idea of having a bad opinion of oneself doesn't mean you're self-loathing or self-hating. That, in some ways, that's very nihilistic. It's get over yourself. It's really not ultimately about you. And one of the difficulties in just modern living is the mirror is constantly like this. And when the only thing you see on a day-to-day but is your own self, is my own failing or my own success, because it's my success and I did it, after a while, this leads to depression. The prophetic paradigm is to adjust that mirror so that you're reflecting something from the divine. I acknowledge I have failures, but I also have a Lord which forgives. I understand that I'm in difficulty right now, but I also understand that there is a wisdom because it comes from a source. It didn't happen coincidentally or haphazardly. And this is why our tradition, our religion, is a religion of hope. It's not a way of despair. And that's not just to sound all like, to put on a nice positive meme with a kind of smiley face next to it. This is real. This is doctrinal, if you could say. That our religion is a way of hope. Because if we have Allah, then what have we lost, ultimately? And that part of it, that when we talk about the spiritual path, is knowing what it means to have Allah, so Allah can be with you. To be in that presence, to have that experience. So I hope that articulates something of why, we do have, quote unquote, a bad opinion. And su'aban doesn't mean bad opinion, it just means you're a bit skeptical. To be a bit skeptical, a bit cynical. In English humor, we're quite self-deprecating, so it's quite funny. Often a comic will spend half an hour just dissing his own self. It's actually quite Sufi, I think. If you look at these kind of things, it's quite spiritual if it's in its own kind of right. The main thing is we're not cynical and skeptical of others. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
And not cynical of God as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's really seen as a disease. So and the thing is, I'm talking now about if somebody does something which contravenes the Sharia, it's haram. Because it's not like, maybe the alcohol just fell into their hands and then, no, that's just being foolish. If a person is in a state of something which is, their motion is going off in a different trajectory, that's what's happening. The point isn't to block the path. It's to be a means, a conduit to say, no, it's this way, guys. This is the way, remember? And they're like, most people are like, yeah, true, thanks for the advice. Thanks for the support. Not thanks for the, condemnation to hell before I've even ended my journey. So to bring people back, but it's understanding that they are in that place for a reason. They're in that place. There are reasons why they are at where they're at, and that's I'd say there was an authentic expression of empathy. It's not just tolerating, this person is doing this or they're doing that, but kind of just saying, okay, I recognize where you're at. And that's why, as a convert, it's easier to do. Because I'm like, I know what I was doing before Islam, and I didn't really do anything to become Muslim, but Allah guided me, and if that can be the case, then how could I even judge someone else on their journey, Typically, the best way to encourage people is to love them, That was the way of the Prophet,